Hey guys, today I am going to go over just a couple of common mistakes that come out. It's no big deal, but these are the types of things that we're going to want to just get in the habit of fixing on your own so that, I don't have to fix it 700 times. It's pretty cool. Very minor thing. I don't usually put colons on the titles of worksheets. So that's no big deal. So we look at this, and we've talked about before, in various worksheets, we have sort of a discussion in the beginning, right? And the key thing about a discussion is it's going to be coded as a question. Now you'll see over here that it's not, and that's going to be one of our next issues, but it's going to have to be, because every individual thing that gets sent to the student has to be coded as its own question. So over here, I'm going to put 1, and we're going to have to change the font in a second, because we can already tell that it's terrible. But it's going to say something to the effect of, type done, maybe I'll put capital, type done when finished. Or, like when you have finished reading the above. Okay. Like I said, we're going to make this Times New Roman so that Chelsea doesn't die. Also size 12. Cool. Save. And then we're going to make, the numbers bold, and we need to come down here and make sure that all of this matches. So continue the numbering. I'm just going to scroll down and make sure all the numbering goes through. And so here's another key point. It does not. When we hit review questions, even though it's technically sort of like a separate section, maybe we want to start back at 1, we can't anymore because we're doing these all inside of arrays. So this one's going to also have to continue numbering. So it's going to have to go straight through. All the spacing looks pretty good. All of the, exponents look pretty fine. So otherwise, this one is pretty spiffy. So we do love that there's like a page break here when we get to the review, because it is the next section. So for the worksheet, we want the students to be able to see something that's a little bit separated out. And so I think that's about it for this thing. That key thing just being you're going to have to add in questions quite a lot that say, type done when you finished reading the above, or, type done when you have finished. Sometimes it'll say, read this, and then the question will be just like, type done when you're done reading it. Something of that nature. So, like I said, we've got a couple of issues in the array as well. So we're going to address these. If we pop over here, the very first thing, VAR cannot be capitalized. It has to be lowercase, right? We know this, but we just got to make sure that we do it every time. It comes out as capital all the time because, Word automatically capitalizes that first thing. So just get in the habit of making sure you fix that. The next thing is, so we can see here, right, all of this actually has to be coded as a question. If it's not coded as a question, it's not going to work out. I'm going to go ahead, and I can tell that there's some extra spacing, so I'm going to reset the spacing, 0, 0, single. So that's going to be good. And then, so what we're going to need to do over here is put in bold, so this is going to be a 9.1, colon, there has to be a colon, and then we're going to have, simplest radical form, and then every enter here, we can't put these enters, right? So inside of this document, the enters only separate different questions. They do not separate like a title from the rest of it or something, right? Remember, the array is the file that the students do not ever see. It's the file that the computer sees. So we got to talk to a computer over here. So we're going to put, not that, 2 little slashes, so that's enter, enter, and then we're going to have this whole discussion. This discussion also has these enters built into it, so we got enter, all this stuff, right? And it's formatted the same way that this is written out, so that's good. It's perfectly fine. Once we get to the end of this, so now we have this question that we just added over here. I'm going to copy it. We are going to need to include that question here as well. And okay, paste and then paste text only. All right, cool. I gotta get this out of there. So now we have this in here. However, we notice that the quotation marks are here. We're gonna have to slash those quotation marks out. If I have not covered that in a previous video, I'll cover it in a later video, but just know that it's a thing. Quotation marks have to be slashed out like this. So it's a forward slash. That forward slash is underneath the backspace and above the enter. So we've got all of this. This is going to be a complete thing. Totally fine. So then we go to the next question. Now here's the issue. Because this one did not get coded as a question originally, this is actually 9.1. That means we have to go through now and change all of the rest of the numbers. it's a little bit of a nuisance. So definitely, keep that in mind. Try not to do that and stuff. So we literally just go through 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's not 7. 8, etc. Right? I'll go ahead and fix the rest of these later. But here's the next thing. All of these also do not have a colon. So I put this colon in the first one because I know that's supposed to be there. They don't have a colon, and that's going to be huge, right? If they do not have a colon, it will not work. We've talked about this before. So we're going to have to also go in and add a colon to every single one. Right, and it's a little bit of a laborious task. Unfortunately, we can't really find and replace, because if we replace every asterisk, it's going to replace these ones also. And then, it's always it's like 4 asterisk, 5 asterisks. It just, it basically makes more sense to just go through and do it manually. But it's relatively inconvenient, so, let's not do that. So anyway, we would go through, we would add all of those asterisks, we would change all these numbers. The alert, fortunately, we can find and replace this one. The alert also has to have a colon. So, find and replace. Alert, let's go, alert is fine. And replace it with alert colon. And we're going to replace all, done, right? So that's super fancy. Super cool. The other key thing that we have in this one, this one is treating the array file as if it were a worksheet, but it's not a worksheet. The students are never going to see this one, right? So we just take this out. This should go as part of this question. Review. And let's make a single enter. And then these should go, there should be no page break, and it should go right immediately afterwards, right? So it's just going to be a totally continuous thing. It keeps going down until you get down to here. Every question is only separated by 2 enters. That's it. We go down to the end. Now, we know, you and I know, because I did not finish the rest of these renumberings, that when I get down here, this one would actually end up being 41 at the end. So, if I scroll down here, that means I should have 41 questions in total, and I don't, so that's weird. Oh, I remember. For some reason, I think that this was numbered a bit strangely. And so somewhere the numbers actually even out. Regardless, we're going to want to make sure that the numbers match somehow. So I'm going to go back through that again now and just verify. And then this one does this while it has that end of worksheet thing. That's really critical. One other point that I want to make on this video, if you don't know the answers, that's totally fine. Just look stuff up, right? But I think, this one was just not done out of, a sense of, time urgency. So that's okay too. Getting sort of the bulk of it done. It's totally fine. But do make sure that you go back and just kind of fix these things up, right? Make sure that that they do all have answers. You guys all know the answers to simple stuff like this, so it should be fine. One other thing. So this one says simplify each of the radical. I'm not entirely sure why that got... So anytime you see instructions that say, simplify each of the following radicals, okay, then that's plural. But we're going, this is going to apply to multiple questions, and so it works. The student's going to see multiple questions on this page, and so it works. So that's fine. I can tell that that's not at the top. So on the worksheet, that's okay, right? It's not such a bad thing if that appears on the worksheet. On the array, we need it to make sense. We've mentioned before in a previous video, we need it to make sense for each individual question, so one singular question. I think that the person doing this one maybe just didn't realize the grammatical structure of what they said. Trying to take out the word following is what we usually do, and you take out that plural, and it just sort of came out like this. But be sure to just, as you're going through, read each question and make sure that it works out. So in this case, I would replace, simplify each of the radical. And I'm actually just going to replace that with simplify. So I tend to go for a much simpler approach, right? The shortest, sweetest thing possible, right? Instead of review each of the following problems or review the following problem, review this problem, I'm just going to go with review. It's short, it's simple, it's sweet. And the students are going to freak out if they have to read a million words anyway, so it's probably better if we keep it short. I believe one final thing for this video. One of the things that I do, so if the answer inside of the alert is just a simple answer, right? So for this one, for example, the answer is just going to be 7. to the power of 666. So I'm going to pull up my Unicode file, which I always have, handy dandy Unicode file. Up here, I'm going to copy my 6, which I have, and then switch. And right here, I'm going to paste it actually 3 times, right? Now I can already tell that it has pasted it in the wrong font, which, you know, makes Chelsea cringe and die a little bit on the inside. So let's just change it back to Times New Roman 12. But so this is a very, very simple answer that's going to come out of this one, right? It's just, that's it. It's just the answer. There's no steps, there's no process. Whereas these ones up here, they do have a bit of a step, a bit of a process, that whole kind of thing. So what I usually try to do, if there are steps or some kind of a process leading up to the final answer, is for the final answer, I will make the entire thing bold. Now, doing this after the fact is a little bit weird. You know, you can kind of like highlight the whole thing, make it bold, but then I like to have the asterisks also be bold, so it's a little bit of a process. You do have to have those asterisks in order for Slack to interpret it as bold. But it's going to be something like this. If you're doing it, you know, live, real time, it's going to work out a lot better. So yeah, if you have steps, make the final answer bold and the final answer only. That way it just stands out a little bit more for the instructors who then see it later, right? Actually, if I were to bring this up, possibly could get you, let me see, a 9.4. I think this one might already be in the array. It's not. All right. But, you know, that's the idea. All right. Any questions on this video? Let us know, and that's all.